Y'all Asians got it good though. The police don't mess with y'all like they do with us. Know what I'm saying? Convenient that you leave out the part about statistically what percentage of the violent crime is coming from Asians. Before and after adjusting for population. Man, you geniuses are really destroying the stereotypes here. I can tell that you guys are on your way to becoming doctors and scientists and shit.
Oh my gosh. Well, hey, we're here. Welcome to KSOK Uncensored. That is my guest for today that I've been telling y'all about. I'm very excited. We will have the Korean conservative coming on here shortly. And oh my gosh, you guys, you are in for a treat. But not only is he funny, he has so many layers that we're going to peel back today. And I'm going to be learning a thing or two also. Very excited. So thank you for tuning in. I want to share something that happened to me this weekend. Actually, you know what? It feels like this weekend. It was just yesterday. I went to the beach for one day, one night situation. And we're on the beach, having a bonfire, putting off some fireworks. People down by the coastline were putting off way larger fireworks than us. And everyone's enjoying it. It felt like really American. It was just fun. I met a few people on the beach because I forgot my matches. Anyways, long story short, about 15 minutes into the festivities, I see this SUV just speeding down the beach. And I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't like, you're not supposed to drive on this particular beach. So I was like watching closely, no lights or sirens. They drive right up to the folks that were lighting off the big ones at the shoreline, and they ticketed all of them. They took all their fireworks. It was a police officer at the beach. And me being the common sense individual that I am, I can't stand malarkey like that. There are so many bigger things that they should be putting their energy into. So, of course, I was yelling, "You suck." My husband actually finds that comical because I'm not married to a law enforcement officer that would ever do something as asinine as that. But it started making me think about the way that officer acted is like so many on the left are acting today. It's there's bonfires, permitted bonfires all over the beach. But yet you're going to speed on a crowded beach of people in the dark over to the people lighting off bigger ones because it's not permitted. Okay, why is it not permitted? Because it's been dry in the Northwest because we are under a heat dome. Okay, you have the ocean right there. There's sand that at worst is going to turn into glass. So it's just so frustrating. The overreaction made by that law enforcement officer just frustrated the hell out of me because I can't help but think about that. That's the way that the left is approaching. And so many people, even on the right or in the center, are approaching things today. The extreme, and it just becomes exhausting. Hey, Julius. So yeah, it was one of those things. I'm like, what a lame police officer. Can I run away with you? That's funny. Where you want to go? I was kidding. I'm always down for an adventure, but anyways, that was fun. I ended up meeting somebody from Idaho on the beach, and the person I borrowed matches from, hey, Bruno, and it happens to be from Idaho. I think you guys know what happened next. We ended up talking politics for about 45 minutes. My mom got irritated with me because I left her with the kids as I talked politics with an Idahoan and drank a Pabst Blue Ribbon. But it is what it is, right? That's just me. I said, I don't get out much. I can't help myself. I don't see many people that aren't my kids or my husband or my parents these days. But that was a good time. So just wanted to say hello, do a little intro here. I want to bring the Korean conservative in right now. We have a lot to cover. Come on in, my friend. All right, he's here. I'm so excited. I have to tell you guys. Okay. I asked the Korean conservative. Now, I don't know if I actually didn't ask you if you want me to say your name. So I'm not going to. I'm just going to stick with the Korean conservative. But I asked him to be, what was that?
Generally, everybody shortens it to TKC. Like it's just shorter to say TKC.
All right, I'm going to do that. TKC. All right, doesn't roll off my tongue, but I'm going to try. So I asked TKC to be my political husband because I am so obsessed. I truly did. I did it on Instagram. We had never talked before. Tagged him in one of my Facebook or Instagram stories, and with the little ring, was like, "Will you be my political husband?" He said yes, and the rest is history. But I am so obsessed with what he does because he puts out you put out such great content that not only does it resonate with so many patriots, but and you've even said this yourself, you're saying what maybe white folks such as myself can't necessarily get away with saying. And you're spitting the truth constantly. So I'm fangirling a bit, that's for sure. So happy to have you here.
I'm happy
All right.
to be here.
All right, before we get started, let's roll Juan. Let's roll video 2.
To that one type from that one demographic, do you know why people, including comedians, are afraid to make black jokes but not Asian jokes? It's not out of respect. It's fear of retaliation. What kind? Violence, riots, looting, arson, vandalism. Why do you think they would have that fear? Did that fear originate out of nowhere? You should be way more embarrassed than offended that people have this fear of you and then pander and tiptoe around you because of it, instead of being embarrassed and offended at jokes. Ask yourself, do you really think people and comedians are afraid of violent retaliation from Asians? If not, why not? Fix your culture.
Amen. Right?
Yes.
I mean, so, okay, let's dive in. I want to, so you're in California. Are you born and raised Californian?
No, so technically I was born in Seoul, South Korea, but then I came here when I was 10 months old. But ever since coming here 10 months old, I've been a Southern Californian since, yes. Except when I went to college for 5 years up north at UC Davis. So aside from that.
Nice. All right. West Coast native, just like me. You're in talk about a deep blue state conservative, right?
Yeah.
You're in it. Okay, so I'll jump to that. What is it like being a deep blue state conservative?
Well, I have to watch my back more. Like literally I have to watch my back more. If I'm wearing anything, so for example, this shirt here, it says stand for the American flag. This shirt is enough for people to glare at you here in Los Angeles, where I'm at. It's enough for people to glare at you. It's enough for people to, when I say watch my back, it's for things like when I go to a restaurant or a food truck or even a Starbucks or a coffee place, like I absolutely try to see what they do to my food. Because I'm also not gonna wear like non-patriotic clothing out of fear. Like I'm just not gonna do that. I'm not built that way. Anybody who follows me knows that I'm not built that way. So I have to watch my back more. There are some, there is a fear of being recognized by the wrong person on the street due to the size of my account, and then them, potentially attacking me. Although the thing is, when it comes to leftists, they usually don't, when it's one-on-one, they only attack I've noticed they've only attacked the elderly, women, or like the really, really obese guys, or the really, really like skinny, like small, total beta male looking guys. If they're not in a group, if they're not in a mob, like a bunch of fucking hyenas, rarely do they go one-on-one against a man who looks even relatively capable of handling himself. And you haven't met me in person, so maybe you can't tell, but I'm not built I'm not built like someone you can just slap around.
Right. No, I think you're spot on, because I think about here in Portland, Antifa. Yeah, you rarely will see them in videos one-on-one. Like you said, yeah. The hyenas, that's what they are, literally. And without each other, they're nothing, because they are just, have you seen the arrest pictures when they actually do get arrested in Portland, which is not often enough? They are such, like you said, the beta male, they're like skinny, and they look unhealthy and malnourished. And one-on-one, I'm like, really? But yeah, they get together and they, It's disgusting. So I completely understand what you're saying. And I know what you're saying with the food situation, because it's almost like a law enforcement officer, because I know, like, my husband, the only place he will eat is a Subway, where he can, when he's on duty, where he can watch them make the entire sandwich. He will not order anything anywhere where it's being made out of his line of sight. It's so unfortunate, but it's the reality for many of us. And I don't have an account your size, but I do often get, and I wonder if it's in my head a bit, but I feel like I get the side eye at like the grocery store and whatnot, kind of like, oh, that's that chick. Because I'm all liberals.
I get recognized by fellow conservatives, like, randomly on the street. Even if it's not at a patriotic event, like, I'll get, like, on New Year's, I mean, not New Year's, on July 4th, I literally, so this is just the most recent one. This happens more often than you would think, and which is, to me, like, it's shocking because I'm such a nobody. But on July 4th, I didn't want to drink that night because I wanted to be sharp, right? Like, I wanted to keep my other friends safe. They were getting wasted. So I went to a liquor store nearby to get canned coffee. I know that's so dorky, like, I get it, but I got canned coffee for myself. And then walking back, so I met eyes with this, like, these two, like, Filipino looking chicks. Like, I think one of them might have been Vietnamese, but then I didn't think anything of it. I just, I didn't even think they were, like, hot or whatever. I just looked at them. We just caught eyes. That happens, And then all of a sudden, from behind me, the one of the girls goes, "Oh my, hey you, are you the Korean conservative?" And then I turn around, and I'm like, yeah, that's me. And then, yeah, she's like, "Dude, I've been following you, like, since the beginning." I'm like, "Thank you." But there's a flip side to that coin. If random people can recognize me, but they're conservatives, it stands to reason that liberals in the same state, in the same cities, will also recognize me, and maybe just not say anything about it because, again, like, unless they're in a group, what the fuck are they gonna do, right? So,
right.
But it does stand to reason that I've already gotten noticed by liberals or maybe, like, BLM people around here, but they're usually alone. They're not going to do anything about it. By the way, this is coming from a guy who I have 3 different MAGA hats. I wear them everywhere, like when I'm doing groceries, when I'm doing, and, like, it's almost like I'm, like, waiting. To this day, nothing has ever. They glare at me. They might talk shit, but nobody's ever actually tried to do anything. The one time it came close. Okay. The one time it came close to that was this, like, again, like, I hate to make fun of a guy's size because you can still be like a man, like, despite not being a big. I'm just noticing a pattern here. This, like, skinny, at a maximum of what, 5'6", like, this skinny little cholo. I'm not just saying that because he was Latino. He was literally like a cholo. I'm walking to my car with my groceries, and then he goes, "Hey, fuck MAGA fool, I'm gonna fuck you up." So then obviously I turn around, and and by the way, again, I'm not making fun of anybody with disabilities here. I'm just stating what I observed. Not only was he skinny and short, he also had quite literally had a hunchback. Like, he literally had, like, a hunchback, right?
Right.
So he's threatening me, and then I go, "You're not gonna do shit about it. Like, let's be like," I said, like, "You're not gonna do shit about it." And he said, and then he says, "I'm gonna stab you, fool." I'm like, that's when I got,
oh my God.
So then I drop my groceries and I start running toward him before he can get the knife out, right, and flick it out. Like, the speed and timing is of the essence here. And then as soon as, I guess he expected me to run away when he said he had a knife, but I called his bluff. You can tell by the way a guy's shirt is tucked or whatever, like, whether you really have anything or the way you're walking. So I called his bluff and I fucking just ran after him, right, from across the parking lot. Lo and behold, he gets in his car, drives off, and gives me the finger as he's driving away. Like, that's the closest it's come to an altercation.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy though. Yeah, no. And you know what? If I didn't look like balls in my MAGA hat, I would be wearing it out. I swear that thing's massive. It's like 2 times the size of my head. But good for you. And it's just crazy. Dan popped up earlier. He said, didn't Trump really win California? What are your thoughts on that?
I believe that okay, so that's kind of a stretch, but I believe at the very least, California is not as blue as they say. I think it's purple, and the reason why I know this is because at the height of the Beverly Hills Trump rallies, which coincided with the Huntington Beach Trump rallies that were going on before the election, there were quite
Right.
literally hundreds and or thousands of people gathered, Californians, to root for Trump. It was a Trump rally without Trump or Southerners there. It was a Trump rally. It was, I can't even begin to describe to you, like, okay, Halloween of last year, it fell on a Saturday, which was the day that we got together at a certain location of Beverly Hills to rally for Trump. I kid you not, there was at least 2,000 people there in this one area. We had vendors there selling MAGA merch. We had a whole bunch of stuff.
Nice.
So that surprised a lot of people. That especially shocked a lot of liberals in Los Angeles. So Huntington Beach is pretty red, so nobody got surprised there. But in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, the fact that this many MAGA supporters came out in the open, that's when a lot of liberals started rethinking how they talk around people they don't know. Because they didn't know that it could get to this size in Beverly. In the middle of Los Angeles, nobody knew it could get to that size. The downside is that it made the liberals of Los Angeles way more, like, divisive. So, like, it shocked them, but it also made them, like, more angry when they got together in groups, right? BLM, Antifa, all those people got them more angry. But again, like, okay, unless you're in a group, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Eat your soy burrito in front of me? Fuck you.
Well, I've been following the MAGA Hulk, and I believe he was in Beverly Hills. At least,
he moved.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it looked amazing. I was like, there is something happening here. This is a true movement. Dan says you swear like me. It's true. In my recent videos, I haven't been filtering as much. What does he think of Trump and what he did with North Korea? That's for you.
I owe Trump a debt of gratitude for that, and I'll tell you why. Because my entire extended family is in out of the entire, like, list of people from South Korea. The only people in America are me, my mom, my little sister. My dad is well, I mean, I honestly don't know where my dad is. He left when I was 14. To this day I still don't know where he is. Oh, look, I'm black. And then so we're the only ones in America, and so I do have my entire rest of my bloodline back in South Korea. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but it's South Korean males have a mandatory once they turn 15 or 16, they have a mandatory military service of 2 years. It's mandatory because technically we've been at war with North Korea for a couple decades now. It's just nobody's ever made a move because both sides are too scared to, like, do anything about it because we both have, like, nukes, right? But like, it is mandatory because we're technically still at war, and the only reason why that's there is because we had bad relationship with North Korea. Trump came in and facilitated, even though it's temporary, facilitated a unprecedented peace between those two nations, right? So, and by the way, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the South Korean president himself gave Trump credit for that, for facilitating that. So when I tell you that Trump is directly responsible for keeping my entire extended family safe in South Korea, that's not an exaggeration of any sort, right?
Wow.
So yeah, I owe him a debt of gratitude. That's just one of many reasons why I went red.
That brings me to, let's talk about your background. Like, you were very different in, should I say, high school, college age. I would love for you to tell the audience and myself, because I only know a little bit, about where you came from.
Okay. So, in high school, I wasn't, okay, so it's weird, because even in high school, there's no other country, not even South Korea. Granted, if my mom stayed in South Korea, like, her family would have helped her out after my dad left, but for the most part, the culture and business world of South Korea is not built to adequately support and encourage single mothers. It's just not. There is no other country I can think of, well, I mean, to be fair, even metrically speaking, there's no other country that would have given my mom, me, and a single mother of two, plus me and my little sister, there's no other country that would have given us the chance to succeed the way that America has. And I think as an actual immigrant who had to see up close what an immigrant parent with an English language has to go through to try to make it in this country, like, I think there always was a part of me that was patriotic, right? Because I was in eighth grade when September 11 happened. I watched it I watched it, right? And even then, I remember getting very, very, very angry, to the point where I was confused as to why. So I always think I was patriotic to an extent. I remember how much it meant to me as an eighth grader, because my US history teacher came in the next day weeping, and then finally she said something I'll never forget. She said, if those bastards want to go to war, they can come get it, right? Or she said something like, we'll go get it. And she was crying, and I remember everybody else in my class was like, oh, I can't believe she's okay with war. And I was the only one in the class that was like, fuck yeah, right?
Right.
And by the way, years later, I find out she's actually a diehard Republican. Big surprise there, right? Because she was patriotic, unlike the other teachers of that high school. Nobody else was taking it the way she was taking it, and now I know why. A Republican U.S. history teacher with respect for our history and legacy, yeah, I get it. What ended up happening, though, was I ended up going to a very, 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 very college. You see, only 1 hour away from Berkeley, so there's a trickle-down effect of liberalism, and I got indoctrinated. And I was lazy and stupid, and I was like a kid, like a teenager going into my early 20s, and I loved the idea of getting free stuff and getting free empathy based on victim mentality. Like, I'm a victim, I'm a person of color. And I'll get back to that point of me being a person of color later, but yeah, I love the idea of like social justice, right? And sticking it to the white man or white woman. And it's like weird, like even in retrospect, it's weird how much I like hated white people when the majority of the girls I was hooking up with and or dating and or in a relationship with in college were like white women. So if this is the best white supremacy ever, right? So it's like yeah, so it's I got indoctrinated, and in college I used to be a diehard liberal atheist protest march leader. I didn't just join protests.
Wow.
I to lead them because I'm relatively articulate. I'm like, so I what you see the young people today wearing, the black masks, black gloves, all black for when they're like rioting and looting. My generation, so I was in college more than 10 years ago, my generation of protesters set that clothing, dress code. We're the ones that set it. I sent you a picture long ago of me in a black mask, black gloves, hoodie draped over, leading a march. That's me in college. And don't get me wrong though, back then it would never conceive to us to get to a point of looting, rioting, and arson. It would never, we never went anywhere near that, but we did set certain standards for today's Antifa and BLM. And then how I became a conservative, such like a 180 turnaround, is first of all, statistically speaking, people who identified as liberal socialists as in their youth, a lot of them, I think 40% of them end up going conservative, at least, even at the very least, they go fiscally conservative when they start making their own money and going up the job ladder, and they start to understand the DNA, the concept of you get what you put in, which is the opposite of what liberals want to do. They just want everything for free. So when they start having certain degrees of adult responsibility, like salaries, taking care of a family unit, things like that, like mortgages, houses, like saving up for children in the future, like things like that, it turns them naturally more conservative. So for me, it was kind of like that too. Like the more I went up the corporate ladder, I ended up becoming more conservative. When I started seeing people like looting, rioting, or protesting for like $15 an hour, I looked at them, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Do you know how much, like, do you know what I had to do for $15 an hour? Like, I'm lucky I didn't sell my ass on the street. You know what I'm saying? So, and believe me, I could have made a pretty penny. I mean, look at me. You know what I'm saying? So, so fucking stupid.
Yeah, you
But,
could have.
yeah. And then, and also, going back to this concept of me being a person of color, like, the more I tried to stick with certain liberal policies, I understood that the Democrats and liberals don't give a fuck about Asians because we don't fit their victim narrative. So they never
Right.
care about policies that affect us. They only care about blacks and Latinos, lesbians, whatever, right? Muslims. But when it comes to Asians, I noticed that, like, for example, affirmative action, it disproportionately affects our entry scores because it's not based on merit anymore, but they don't care. They don't care because they want to give a chance to everybody else except for us because we're not people of color enough for them. And that's when I started,
Right.
that was one of the first things that made me realize, like, oh, what? That's funny. Like, they really, I thought I was one of you guys. I marched for you guys, and apparently I'm still not worth it to give a second look at. And then that's when I started, it's like that.
Yeah. Wait, so didn't you tell me the other day, and this was an aha for me because I had never heard this term, but that Asians are considered white adjacent?
Yeah.
And
So
is that what they're teaching in school right now? Is that in the critical race theory handbook?
Yes. So according to critical race theory, Asians are white adjacent due to our success levels. And the reason why they consider us white adjacent is because critical race theory asserts that if you come from being industrious, being punctual, being merit based, being a part of adhering to certain levels of hierarchy, etc., things like that, that is Eurocentric ideals, which is fucking racist to say. Like, for you to think that you're the... And so because Asians come from a similar culture where we hold those things in high regard. Oh, and nuclear family. So when we hold those things in high regard, they go, oh, well, then you're not actually a person of color. You're more white than you are a person of color. So white adjacent, that is a real term in critical race theory that says Asians are not people of color. But then it's funny, when a white guy goes on a massacre spree at a spa in I forgot where it was, Atlanta, I think what it was, like recently, when he does that, when a white guy affects us because they want to capitalize on our emotions, then all of a sudden liberals are like, oh, you poor people of color, we can help you. Sorry, but you fucked up, liberals. You forgot that the internet was a thing, and more Asians who were on the fence politically or didn't care, we're starting to see that you don't care about us until it fits your narrative. Because prior to this event, all of a sudden, we were white adjacent, right? Which is why you justified discrimination against Asians in college applications, which is why you justified discrimination against Asians in the job market, especially in tech, right? Which is why you discriminated against Asians when it comes to the movie industry, right? So even with the movie industry,
Huge.
even in the movie industry, so currently blacks are 13% of the U.S. population, right? And the Democrats have always relied on the majority of the black vote to keep staying in power. If the roles were reversed and Asians were 13% of the population as opposed to the 5% we are now, and we made up a large enough voting bloc, I'm pretty sure we'd be seeing more Asians on the screen than we would be black Americans. But the reason why they keep putting out all black movies, black-centric movies, things like that is because the reason why they swap the races of certain superheroes from white to black but never to Asian is because they want to pander to the black vote. You'll never see that with Asians because we don't make up a voting bloc yet. So when it's all about pandering and demographic shifts. And noticing the movie industry is also what helped me to readjust, realign, and rethink what I thought about liberals in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, no, that's like crazy. You really do think about that. And it's like, you really, if someone, everyone watching, like, reflect on the small amount of Asians that we see in Hollywood today. I mean, it really is alarming what they're doing. And what you're saying is spot on. I mean, it's like, they used the Asian community with the Stop Asian Hate campaign. It's just so disgusting. And it's good to hear from you that the majority of folks that were on the fence that are Asian were like, wait, we're being pandered to. We're being used yet again to drive a narrative, a gun control narrative, white supremacy narrative. So yeah, I can't even, it's just so disgusting. What I want to do, I want to play your third video here. Juan, can we play the third bit that we have here?
Culture shapes families, families shape values, and values inform your personal decisions later on as an adult. If the cultural foundation is shaky, then everything else becomes crooked. The results speak for themselves. East Asians and Jews have very similar traditional cultures in terms of families, values, and priorities. And we're statistically the two most prosperous groups in white supremacist America. Do you see a lot of video footage of us looting and rioting and burning out there? No, because we do our homework, go to our accounting jobs, come home to get yelled at by a wife and children that we didn't abandon, and then at the end of the day, we just count our gold.
You know what my favorite part of your videos is when you like laugh at the end. Oh my God, I love it. I think that's why I like you so much too, is because it's funny. It's like you're so serious, and at the very end you get to see a glimpse into your personality. So funny.
Well, I mean, okay, so those laughs aren't planned because generally when I record these, it's actually when I'm recording it, it's the first time I'm hearing myself say it. So it hits differently when I construct these things in my head or I write it down. I don't write the whole script. It's like it's an outline, and I fill in the rest with my just off the cuff. But I have an idea of what's going to be said, but I don't actually say it out loud. And then when I say it, it's so stupid. So it's like,
no, it's probably like so shocking to hear it, and then you're like, you've cracked yourself up at that point. No, I love that. You can tell it's not a forced laugh. It's because you don't do it every time, but that's like when I saw that, that's why I'm like, yeah, I need to ask him to be my political husband, because I'm like obsessed.
I mean,
but
it's the visual imagery of this Asian guy, this Asian father and accountant, and a Jewish father and accountant going back home in a modern world where this is no longer used anymore, and literally sitting there counting their gold coins. Like the imagery of that, I was like, that's so fucking stupid as I was saying it out loud.
That's hysterical. Well, I love it, and it drives the point across. I mean, come on, it makes complete sense. Oh man. All right, I want to talk about dating in the Los Angeles area as an Asian conservative. I mean, let alone a conservative. But what's it like? Tell me.
Okay, so let me give you a frame of reference for some of the people who are watching, and just to you in general. You've been married for how long?
13 years.
Okay, so you've never been on a dating app. I am part of a generation that relies on it for the most part.
I have to correct that. When Match.com first came out, so I've never been on a swipe situation, which would be so fun. Sometimes I've wanted to just have a profile just so I can judge people. But I did Match.com for like a year, and before I met my husband, of course. But anyway, so no apps. But yeah, I did get to do a little bit of the internet dating.
Okay, Match.com is a website, and it's an app now, but at the time, back in 1980, whenever you were dating, it was...
Nice
okay,
one,
so, I mean, I'm really young. I just turned 33, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, just to give you a frame of reference, there's an app right now called there's an app right now called Bumble, and before, okay, so I knew that I was a conservative, like straight up, like I admitted to myself, like I'm a fucking conservative. Like I admitted that to myself when I turned 25 or 6, right? I didn't come out as conservative, but I knew that I was. So, but even when I admitted to myself that I was a conservative, I knew how hard it would be for me to date as a conservative, or if people knew I was conservative in Los Angeles. So even on my dating apps, I didn't say anything about politics. And sometimes I would, if they asked me what my thoughts were on Trump or whatever, like I would lie and you know, like a coward, I would pretend that I was a liberal just to get some pussy. So, so
you should see Juan's face.
So that went on for a couple of So that went on for a couple of years because I'm a young guy in my 20s, and like, who doesn't, but
Yeah.
once I turned 27, I think, so here's once I'm 28, I got this, like, and the more, obviously over the years, I just became more and more and more conservative. Like, I felt this, like, it's cliche and corny to say, but it was like a true emptiness. Like, when I would go on Instagram and Instagram's algorithm would suggest like different political accounts to me, and those political accounts would post the pictures of like their family on a ranch, mom, dad, daughter, son, and it's just them, a family unit on a ranch somewhere with this. Like, I found myself like, this word gets used often, but I don't think people really understand what I felt, a longing for that. It was so drastic, the change in me. And so I couldn't do it anymore. So on my dating apps, I needed to filter out anybody that doesn't match my values and beliefs for marriage materials. So on all my dating apps, I openly stated that I'm a conservative in the first sentence, right? Literally right now, my dating apps, the opening sentence is a proud conservative, patriotic, Second Amendment, country music, fuck yeah, like stuff like that, right?
Yes.
On all my dating apps, it's the same thing. Now, just to give you a frame of reference, when I didn't put my political leanings on my dating apps, on Bumble, this is not an exaggeration. One day you could ask any of my friends, they'll tell you, on average, I would be getting 27 matches a week, which is a lot. That's actually a lot, right, for Bumble? And then when I openly put that I was a conservative, now I'm lucky if I get one match every 2 months. Okay?
Really?
Yeah. And most of the time, when they do match with me, they did it on accident because they just looked at my pictures, they didn't read my bio, maybe that they thought I was cute and they swiped right? Or, because girls tend to read the bios more than guys do, because guys are visually oriented, so we just swipe based on who's hot. Girls look for a little more like personality matches and stuff like that, right? So, usually they swipe right because they thought I was hot and they didn't read my bio. Or sometimes they match on purpose just to be able to message me to cuss me out for being a conservative. This has happened 3 times.
Oh my God. Really?
One of them matched with me and her sentence was, "Go kill yourself." The second one was, "You should be ashamed of being Asian and a conservative." And the third one was just, I think it was something like, "Go fuck yourself." It was different.
Oh my gosh.
Girls, all 3 of those girls, white liberal girls.
I was going to ask you, I was going to say, I bet they're not Asian. Oh my gosh, that is crazy. Go kill yourself. I mean, seriously, you hear of all of that nonsense, and thank God I'm like somewhat removed from that world, but that is so disgusting. Oh my gosh. But you're better off doing what you're doing. But
as far as dating goes, it's not, as far as dating goes currently, it's not, things have been getting slightly better. I am still technically single, but things have been getting slightly better because ever since my account started getting on more people's maps, like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like I get some DMs, you know what I mean? But again,
come on.
Well, but the thing is, even with the DMs, like, they're coming from girls where it doesn't make any realistic sense. So it's basically like, oh yeah, you're hot, but you're a single mother of 4 in Ohio. Like, okay, like, what did you think I was gonna? Like, what did you think I was gonna pack up my stuff and go to Ohio to see you? And then, like, what did you think I was gonna do? Like, I was gonna, or they're from, like, I don't know, I got one from Oregon. There's I mean, they come from all over the place, but there's also, like, and I think you might have seen on my Instagram feed, like, I'm meeting more and more conservatives all the time because I help to put on these SoCal conservative, like, speakeasies with some friends of mine. We put it on. We have one coming up for July 31st tentatively. So I meet new patriots all the time, and then everybody introduces each other, and then of course, like, a lot of them just recognize me, and they're like, "Oh my God, aren't you the blah 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 blah?" And so I'm meeting new people all the time. So it's not as bad as it once was before I started my account, but as far as like dating apps and stuff like that goes, it's still hard. It's I mean, first of all, dating in Los Angeles is hard. Period, right? Because Los Angeles is the place statistically where literally the top 2 to 3% hottest people in the world come to try to make it in the industry that's based on looks, right? Acting, modeling, things like that. So when I tell you that at best I'm a Los Angeles 2, that is not an exaggeration, right? So
Oh my God. I never want to go there. Oh my gosh.
well, no,
Oh,
but
that's crazy.
to be fair, like I have to work very, very hard to even be a 2 in Los Angeles. I eat very strict. I work out, like I grew myself. So because I try hard to keep up in Los Angeles, where I'm a 2, in some podunk place like Portland, Oregon, or Oregon in general, I'm a 12, right? So
Dropping bombs. Look at that. I know, in Portland. Oh my gosh, it's funny. Yeah, there. You know what's funny? I had to drive through Portland on the way to and from the beach recently, and I was looking around. Yeah, it's not right in Portland. Not pretty. Not pretty. But yeah, that's hysterical. You're not a 2, but anyways, that. I know what you're saying though, because I mean, it's crazy. You feel like that at least I felt like that in Miami. I'm like, oh my God. So, yeah, no, that's intense. Oh boy. All right. I want to talk about, you are the founder of Axit. Am I saying Asian Exit, correct? Kind of like how Candace Owens is the founder of Blexit. So
yeah.
how did you get going with that? Like, where did you start off?
Well, okay, so I waited around for years for another Asian conservative to do what Candace Owens was doing. And there's a Lexit too, Latino Exit. I waited around for years for someone else to. By the way, I was there when those 2 organizations kicked off. They kicked off here in Los Angeles.
No
I
way.
saw Candace Owens. Yeah, I saw Candace Owens live in an auditorium when she kicked it off, like Blexit as a whole. She kicked it off here in Los Angeles. I was there. I was there when Brandon Tatum, Candace Owens, Jesse, the guy who runs Lexit, Larry Elder was there, Ann Coulter was there. Like I was there when they kicked it off, and I was very. It was like a. It was awe-inspiring, to say the least. But even after that, I waited around for years for the Asian one, because everything I just told you about what I noticed about how liberals treat Asians, all that stuff, like this is all stuff that I was thinking about, but nobody was vocalizing it, right? And not only was nobody vocalizing it, I already knew that nobody would, like not a lot of, because Asians culturally were very quiet, right? Part of the reason why my account has grown so much in such a short amount of time, so it hasn't even been a full year yet, but I'm at what, 17.2K. So and then the accident account is at 5,700, and then so the reason why it's grown so much is because people have been waiting for an Asian conservative to speak up like this for quite some time now, and B, the reason why it's grown and it's so much, and the reason why it's so alluring is because not only were people waiting for an Asian to speak up, nobody expected the Asian to speak up the way that I do, which is savage as fuck, right?
Yes,
I'm gonna assume when they hear the Korean conservative, for people who've never seen my account, when they hear the Korean conservative, they're expecting like a meek, like nothing funny, just all facts and stuff. Which I'm factual, but the thing is, they probably expected like a PowerPoint presentation, right? They did not expect me. So that being said,
with the little remote, the PowerPoint with the remote.
Oh yeah, with the remote, with the laser point, maybe. So yeah, nobody was expecting me, and so I waited around for years for someone to start, and nobody was doing it. So finally one day, I was like, I am every bit the stereotype of the passive Asian male if I don't fucking do something. So in August of 2020, when the riots and stuff were at its peak, I started the Korean conservative account. I started that. I actually technically have a YouTube channel, right? I have one video on there. That one video is the thesis statement of Axit. Like I list out factually all the reasons why conservative policies benefit Asians most. For those of you who want to look it up, it's the Korean Conservative on YouTube. Same thing. And
awesome.
that one YouTube video, you don't even have to look at it. It doesn't have any visuals for the moment. It's just me speaking into the camera. But listen to it like a podcast. Listen to all the facts, details. See if I'm wrong. I'm not, but see if I'm wrong. So
right?
Ever since then, so I officially started my Korean conservative account and the YouTube account and all the other stuff like around then. And then
Okay.
in that YouTube video, I coined the term Axit. Nobody had done it before. I finally coined it. And yes, it's inspired by Candace Owens' Blexit, which in turn was inspired by Britain's Brexit. And it's also inspired by Lexit and the walkaway movement, all that stuff. And
Love
yeah,
it.
I started it. Then and then on the Korean conservative account, I was just doing what I was doing, but maybe not as much as what I'm doing now. But I was just making memes and stuff here and there. But then I got picked up by Lexit. Lexit reached out to me, and they showed me the ropes. They said, "Yeah, we've been waiting for an Asian exit for quite some time, right?" And they showed me the
Nice.
ropes. Even though I had nothing to offer them in return, no traffic, no followers, no nothing. They showed me the ropes. Like, it's important for you to start a separate Axit page instead of just keeping it all on the Korean conservative page. And then from there, I shifted of making my Korean conservative page the personality page, so people can get attracted to it at first. But then I'd be redirecting everybody to Axit, the Axit page, so Asian conservatives can feel open to speak out, just like I am. They don't have to do it exactly the way that I am, but they can tell their story on the Axit page, because right now there is no other space out there online for Asian conservatives to voice their libertarian or conservative journey from an Asian standpoint. There is a Blexit, there's a Lexit, there's a Walkaway, there's a whole bunch of other things, but for Asians there just wasn't any until I made this. And the reason why a lot of people were like, weren't you afraid to show your face and stuff like that? Of course I was. Of course I was afraid, right? Believe it or not, like when I first started, I was so camera shy that you could actually, in my earliest videos, you could actually see me perspire a little because I'm nervous. So, when I first started, of course I was scared, but what I came to the realization was this: like, Asians as a culture they don't like to take initiative often. They always like to wait for someone else to do it first. Someone else who looks like them and is legitimately an Asian. If I hid behind a voiceover screen, like, if you didn't know I was Asian, by the way that I'm speaking, most people might think I'm a white guy or a Latino guy, right? So there's no guarantee. A lot of Asians wouldn't mobilize because they're like, we don't even know if you're like a fellow Asian or not. You could just be talking shit trying to mobilize the Asian vote. They needed to see that I literally am one of them. They needed to see it. Because I know, being a Korean, like, culturally, they're not inclined to follow suit until they're sure that it can work. And now they are sure that it can work because they see my Korean conservative account and they see how well it's doing. So now they're open to coming out on the Axit page and starting their own online conservative journeys. The point of the Korean conservative account isn't necessarily me. It's to show other Asians that anybody can be the next Korean conservative. Like, not literally the next Korean conservative, but like literally you can be that next online Asian conservative figure. Anybody can do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's amazing. You're inspiring people. So I'm curious with Axit, is it any hitting the streets, or is it mostly digital in the social media space?
It is hitting the streets so at the height of the Beverly Hills and Huntington Beach rallies, I would go with a sign.
That instinct you have to protect the.
Oh,
it's okay.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So that it's hitting the streets when I was still rallying, like, pretty hard. People were asking me, like, what's an Axit? What's #Axit? Because I would be going with a sign, and I'd have fellow Axit peoples from Los Angeles or Orange County, like, joining me, like, in our own separate group at the rallies. So obviously people would ask what it is, and then over time it didn't even have to come to a point where I had to even announce what it is, because at this point, like, whether it's in Los Angeles or Orange County, like, people, when I go to a rally, people tend to, like, recognize me. So I don't really have to explain what it is, but when sometimes people who still don't know what it is, I do tell them exactly what it's about and what they can do if they want to support it. But for the most part, it's right now it's mostly digital, because I can't go out there and meet and greet every single, like, it just doesn't make any sense, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's great. That's what it is. We do what we can. Like, I know Ram is, like, for instance, this weekend, there is a medical freedom conference in Anaheim that I would love to attend, but just with my husband's schedule and with my family, and my daughter just had surgery, I can't. And so it's one of those things, but I do what I can, and I continue on to, post videos from my house and go out, and there's local rallies and do what we can. And so I think that's great. I wanted to ask you a few things. One, I know that recently you got together with Christian Walker, and he's someone that I really admire also, and he also has a great personality. The two of you combined, that is explosive. But I'm just curious how that went, getting to meet him.
So we've actually, so we have been, started following me. So one of my Instagram posts went viral on Twitter for about a good week. And it, I've been following him for a while, but it finally put me on his radar. So he followed me, and then like he would DM me and I would DM him just saying like, dude, I fucking love your account. Like he would say the same thing. Like, I love your account too. Because he goes after Black American culture, or the toxic elements of Black American culture, the same as I do, right? He uses different language, but he goes after just as hard. So he really does love my account, and I love his account, and he's one of my, there's a number of conservative influencers, my templates for how my different levels of savagery, and he was one of them. So and then I finally got around to getting his number from a mutual friend of ours. And then one day he showed up on my live, and people were, different conservatives were in the LA area on this one live, were accusing me of legitimately, cliche, like being a racist against Black people. And then he hopped on the live, and people were like, holy shit, Christian Walker's in here. And he, once and for all, he shut everybody up. He was like, I'm Black, I'm a Black and gay conservative, and I go through I love his account, I see all his stuff, and none of it offended me, case closed. He literally said that, and then everybody shut up. And then so, after having his number for so long, I was like, screw it, let me thank him. So I called him, I thanked him for it, and then we were on texting terms from that point on. Finally, I was just like, dude, you want to just go out to lunch? Like, you want to have lunch? And he was like, oh, yeah. So we had lunch, we had dim sum, and that conversation, I can't go into detail, but we roasted every group, everybody. It was hilarious. And he bought me coffee. He's a really nice guy. He bought me coffee. Why?
Yeah, he seems very genuine, and I'm happy that you guys were able to get together, because especially being from that area, and then just coming from the backgrounds that you come from, though very different, you still face a lot of the same aspects. And so I just thought, I saw the picture of you two, and I was like, oh, that is so good. You guys are such a great pairing. And I admire him. And yes, he is.
A lot of people have been asking for at least one reel, like of us two, like roasting somebody, because just based on our people have been wanting that for quite some time now, and I don't know, like I want him to know that I'm gonna try to be his friend because of who he is, as opposed to, I don't want him to think that I'm his friend because of what he can do for me. So I didn't bring that up, not once. So
I totally get that. Yeah, I respect that a lot. I definitely tread lightly too when it comes to that type of stuff. Okay, second thing, I know we only have like 7 minutes left, but I really want to get to the fact that as you saw in my recent video, I'm really disgusted with what Caitlyn Jenner had to say during her interview with Tucker Carlson, his interview. Some of my followers didn't like that I've been referring to her as her, but so I'm trying not to be a complete dickhole here, but anyway, so during Caitlyn's interview with Tucker Carlson, for those of you who missed it, basically said, I'm not, basically, I don't owe anything to Trump. I don't owe anything to the Conservative Party, Republicans, yada, yada. I am here for the LGBTQ plus community. That is so wrong on so many levels. I don't have to go into that. You already know why. But I mean, we should be here. If you're running for the California governor, you should be running for the people of California, not just a small percentage of people that make one decision within. Anyways, so Jenner's out, in my opinion, and I think the majority of folks probably feel the same. Larry Elder, however, what are your thoughts on Larry running?
He most likely has my vote. Even in the video that I mentioned on my YouTube channel, I specifically dedicate an entire portion to Larry Elder, and I thank him. There is footage of him, Larry Elder, the black conservative, who's one of my heroes, but somehow I'm a racist, right? There's video footage of him from the 90s where he's defending Koreans and their rights and the Korean and the Korean community and Asians as a whole. After the LA riots disproportionately affected us. There's footage of him from the 90s doing that, and he hasn't shifted his position since. I need to thank him in some way for standing up for us when nobody else was at the time. Everybody was, oh, poor black people, but against the Asians, oh, they have it good so they can take it. He was defending us at the expense of his own reputation amongst black. He did it. And I feel like the Asian population, especially that of California, owes him a debt of gratitude on that front too. So, and keeping in mind, not only because he's a personal hero of mine, but he was a personal hero of mine even before that I found that video footage of him from the 90s, okay? So, honestly, he probably has my vote. I'm really glad to hear that he's running. Jenner never had my vote because it just doesn't make any sense. So you're obviously not mentally stable. What makes you think that I'm going to trust you with any sort of grand decision?
Right. I totally get that. Who is there? Someone Cox running also? I'm trying to think. Does Larry have competition?
I believe so, but he's not like a winner. He's not a. And then there's also Anthony Trimino, who I'm going to be speaking with soon one-on-one just to see where he's at. But so far, I would lean towards Larry Elder by like a lot, unless Anthony Trimino can blow my socks off.
Nice. Well, that's exciting that you get a chance to, I didn't know, I've never heard of Anthony, but that's awesome that you get a chance to connect with him and see what he's all about. So yeah, that's exciting. When is that taking place?
That should be taking place this Monday, because I think he's starting to understand. Okay, you know how I mentioned earlier that people never cared about the Asian vote because we don't make up a large enough voting bloc?
Right.
Okay, so this comes from both the liberals and conservatives. They never cared about a list, like thinking about policies that affect Asians, because they were just like, oh, like it doesn't matter. And by and large, in terms of like the U.S. demographic, like because we only make up 5 to 7% of the U.S. population, yes, as a rule of thumb, they're not wrong. But in California, yes, our demographic vote matters. In California, yes, it does. Okay, so when I convince Anthony Trimino, like, hey, like you know, you're not going to get the black and Latino liberal vote. It's just not going to happen, right? So why don't you try a gamble on a voting bloc that doesn't really vote anyway, and try to convince them to vote for you by being coming out with harsher sentences for criminals in California? Because part of the reason why Asians are being attacked so disproportionately right now is because they're emboldened by weak laws, right? Right. So why don't you? If you can guarantee me what are your plans to do that at the expense of public ridicule for not being PC enough? Like, I'd love to hear what your stance is about like bowing to the mob for the sake of being PC at the expense of Asian lives and livelihoods. I want to talk to him about that. And depending on his answer, I might change my mind from Larry Elder to him. But Larry Elder hasn't shifted his positions much since the 90s. Right. Consistency is key here, right? So.
Oh, absolutely. That's huge. And such a difference from Jenner, right? I mean, it's so in your face, but I mean, yeah. So I don't even have to talk about Jenner. I feel like they're done. They're done. Like, but yeah, no, I love that you are taking the time to go gather the Anthony's stance as well. I think that's really impactful that you're able to do that. And then, you know, you can throw your weight behind whoever you truly feel, one, obviously who's going to be the best fit, but two, who really can have a shot at doing this. Yes. Gosh, I would love to see a conservative as the California governor. That would be really nice. But all right. It has been such a pleasure having you on. And you are just, I find you entertaining. Two, I think you're a great person. And I love your passion. And I know that what you do has come with some risk, a lot of risk and loss, right? What we do, we put ourselves at risk to lose our jobs, to lose friends, to alienate ourselves from family members. I don't think people necessarily realize that this is a time investment also. We're fighting for the freedom for our country. And I see that in you every day. And yeah, you're funny and entertaining, but it's so much deeper than that. And so I just appreciate you for what you do and continue to do, despite the fact it's an uphill challenge for us. And so I just really impressed by you and just absolutely love your material and your content. So thank you. I really am humbled that you came on and spent the hour here with me this evening. So thank you.
The honor was mine. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you have a wonderful night. I'm going to talk to you guys about a little bit that RAM has going on here. So one, please do not forget that RAM is partnered with MyPillow, Mike Lindell, a wonderful patriot. So we have our own discount code. And initially I was thinking, was it like 10%? It's a hefty discount code. A lot more than 10%. It can vary, but check it out. So when you make a purchase online, it is MyPillow and then RAM, RAM for your discount code. And we have our own number, and it's 1-800-867-0416. So you can call that number, and that tracks back to RAM TV. The other thing is, after me, if you guys can hang on. So as you know, as you saw last week, we have the new show, and that's the Counterculture Mom. So hang on and watch her. But right after me, we also have Charles Sauer, and he talks U.S. policy, and what he does just makes so much sense. So I find it very entertaining. So if you can hang on, that's a short segment, and that's coming directly after my show here. We were just RAM TV. We were just at CPAC. I wasn't personally there. I wish I could have been. We're just at CPAC, did some lives there. And then, like I said, this weekend, going to be in Anaheim at the Medical Freedom Conference. There'll be some lives over Saturday and Sunday. Please tune in for that. Like I said, right after me, hang on, we've got Charles Sauer coming up.